Darth Vader, one of the most iconic figures in the Star Wars universe, is a character whose story resonates deeply with themes of tragedy, fallibility, and redemption. At the heart of the debate about his redeemability lies his transformation from the idealistic and gifted Anakin Skywalker into the ruthless enforcer of the Empire. Whether his final moments of defiance against Emperor Palpatine outweigh his years of tyranny and atrocities is a complex question that draws upon ethical considerations, narrative structure, and the emotional resonance of his character arc. Vader's early life as Anakin Skywalker provides a glimpse into his potential for good. Born into slavery on Tatooine, Anakin's life began under harsh circumstances, but he displayed extraordinary talents as a pilot and mechanic. His sensitivity to the Force, which allowed him to excel far beyond his peers, marked him as special. The Jedi Order recognized his promise, though their strict code and detachment ultimately became contributing factors to his eventual fall. Throughout Anakin's youth, his selflessness and desire to protect those he loved shone brightly, whether in his determination to free his mother or in his loyalty to Padme Amidala. This foundation suggests a strong moral compass that became corrupted rather than inherently flawed. As Anakin matured, his insecurities and fears became prominent. His attachment to loved ones, primarily Padme, served as both his greatest strength and a vulnerability that Palpatine exploited. The Sith Lord offered Anakin the possibility of saving Padme from a vision of death, preying on his inability to accept loss and his mistrust of the Jedi's teachings. These moments exemplify Anakin's humanity, as his choices were driven by love, albeit twisted into obsession. While his descent into darkness was marked by horrific acts, such as the slaughter of the Jedi younglings, they were the culmination of a manipulated path rather than purely his own making. This manipulation raises questions about culpability and whether his redemption might hinge on understanding the external forces that shaped his fall. The crimes of Darth Vader cannot be overlooked when evaluating his potential for redemption. As the Emperor's enforcer, Vader played a central role in maintaining the Galactic Empire's oppressive rule. His actions included the destruction of entire planets, the merciless pursuit of rebel forces, and countless personal acts of cruelty. For decades, he instilled fear across the galaxy, becoming a symbol of despair for many. From a moral standpoint, these deeds paint a picture of a man far removed from the values of compassion or justice. However, Star Wars as a narrative repeatedly emphasizes the possibility of redemption, particularly through its exploration of the Force's duality. The light and dark sides serve as metaphors for the choices individuals face and the capacity for change. Luke Skywalker's unwavering belief in the goodness still present within his father forms the crux of Vader's redemption arc. Luke's faith in Anakin's latent humanity becomes a catalyst for the climactic events in Return of the Jedi, where Vader ultimately sacrifices himself to save his son and destroy the Emperor. This act of selflessness is pivotal, marking a stark departure from the selfish motivations that had previously defined him. Yet, questions remain about the sufficiency of Vader's final act. Can one moment of heroism erase decades of atrocities? Redemption in a narrative sense often hinges on the character's willingness to confront their past and take responsibility for their actions. Vader's redemption is largely unspoken. He expresses remorse and asks Luke to tell Leia of his true self, but there is little exploration of atonement beyond this final scene. This brevity leaves room for debate about whether his redemption is complete or merely symbolic. An important consideration is how others perceive Vader's redemption. To the galaxy at large, the destruction of the Emperor may not immediately absolve Vader's legacy. His participation in the oppression of billions left scars that could not be healed by one act of rebellion, no matter how significant. However, within the context of the Force, his return to the light side represents a profound spiritual victory. Anakin Skywalker's return signifies the triumph of love and hope over despair, reinforcing the idea that no one is beyond saving. The narrative choice to redeem Vader also serves a larger thematic purpose. His story mirrors the cyclical nature of generational struggles and the enduring possibility of breaking free from the past. Luke's success in reaching his father where others failed highlights the transformative power of compassion and forgiveness. This dynamic challenges viewers to consider whether redemption is a matter of external validation or an internal shift. Vader's ultimate choice to save Luke suggests that he found peace within himself, even if the galaxy's judgment remains uncertain. Redemption is a nuanced concept that often resists simple resolutions. For Darth Vader, the scales of justice and morality weigh heavily against him. His crimes are staggering in their scope, and the suffering he caused is undeniable. Yet, the core of Star Wars is hope, a belief in the capacity for individuals to change and rise above their past. Anakin Skywalker's final moments reflect this ethos, suggesting that redemption is not about erasing one's deeds, but about reclaiming one's humanity. It is this tension between the enormity of his sins and the purity of his final act that makes Vader's redemption a compelling and enduring question. Ultimately, Vader's story is a testament to the complexities of human nature and the struggle between light and darkness. While opinions on his redeemability may vary, his journey invites reflection on the nature of forgiveness, the potential for change, and the power of love to transcend even the deepest scars. The tragedy of his life lies in the choices that led him to darkness, but the triumph of his final act endures as a beacon of hope for those who believe in the possibility of redemption. From the perspective of his children, Luke and Leia, Darth Vader's redeemability is deeply personal and rooted in their connection to the man he once was, Anakin Skywalker. To Luke, Vader was not merely a faceless enforcer of tyranny, but a father with the capacity for good, buried beneath the armor and darkness of the Sith. This belief was unwavering, even in the face of Vader's relentless brutality. Luke's insistence that there was still good in his father formed the emotional backbone of their relationship, driving his risky decision to surrender himself to the Empire in the hope of redeeming him. Similarly, for Leia, the discovery of her heritage as Vader's daughter introduced profound conflict. While her connection to him was far less nurturing than Luke's, the familial bond and her eventual acceptance of their shared lineage reflect the possibility of reconciling Vader's past with the man he could have been. For Luke especially, Vader's redeemability stemmed from a combination of familial love, his belief in the Force's capacity for balance, and his idealism. In their climactic confrontation in Return of the Jedi, Luke's refusal to strike down his father was a testament to his faith in Anakin's latent goodness. Luke recognized the internal struggle within Vader, evidenced by the moments of hesitation and doubt that pierced his otherwise cold demeanor. This belief was vindicated when Vader ultimately turned against Emperor Palpatine to save his son, sacrificing himself in the process. To Luke, this act was proof that his father had been redeemed, that the good within him had triumphed over the evil. Anakin Skywalker was, in Luke's eyes, more than the sum of his sins. Leia, on the other hand, struggled more profoundly with Vader's legacy. Her personal experiences with his cruelty, including the destruction of her home planet, Alderaan, and the torture she endured aboard the Death Star, colored her view of him. Unlike Luke, Leia's relationship with Vader was shaped by his identity as a symbol of oppression rather than as a father figure. When she learned the truth about her parentage, it was an agonizing revelation, complicating her sense of self and her connection to her family. While she may have eventually accepted Luke's perspective on Vader's redemption, her personal experience of his atrocities was an inescapable reality. Yet, the broader question of whether Vader was truly redeemable extends beyond the perspectives of his children. To the galaxy at large, his crimes were so horrific and far-reaching that they rendered him beyond redemption. Darth Vader was not merely a participant in the Empire's evil. He was one of its architects and most visible symbols. His actions led to the suffering and deaths of billions, the eradication of entire worlds, and the suppression of freedom across the galaxy. For those who endured the consequences of his reign, his final act of destroying Palpatine could not erase the decades of terror and oppression he helped perpetuate. From a moral standpoint, Vader's crimes were monstrous and deliberate. His active role in the destruction of Alderaan, his execution of Jedi, including the murder of children in the Jedi Temple, and his merciless pursuit of dissenters all mark him as a figure whose deeds eclipse any hope of absolution. Redemption in this context is not simply a matter of seeking forgiveness or performing one heroic act. It involves a profound reckoning with one's past and a commitment to atonement. Vader, despite his final turn back to the light, did not have the opportunity or arguably the willingness to face the consequences of his actions or make amends. This absence leaves his redemption incomplete, particularly for those who suffered under his tyranny. The contrast between Luke and Leia's personal forgiveness and the galaxy's inability to forget highlights the complexity of Vader's redemption. To his children, he was redeemable because they could see the man he once was and the love that motivated his ultimate sacrifice. To the countless beings who lived in fear of him, however, Vader's legacy was one of destruction, and no single act, no matter how selfless, could undo the damage he had wrought. This dichotomy underscores a fundamental tension. Redemption is subjective, shaped by proximity, perspective, and personal stakes. From an external perspective, Darth Vader may indeed be beyond redemption. His crimes were not mere lapses in judgment or isolated acts of cruelty. They were sustained and systemic. Redemption on a societal level requires acknowledgement, restitution, and transformation, elements Vader's final moments lacked. While his sacrifice was undeniably significant, it was also too little, too late to absolve him of his guilt in the eyes of the galaxy. This view does not diminish the emotional weight of his redemption for Luke and Leia, but it places it in a broader ethical and historical context. Ultimately, the question of Vader's redeemability depends on the lens through which it is viewed. For his children, the love and hope they held for their father allowed them to see the good within him and to forgive. For the galaxy, however, the enormity of his crimes overshadows his final act, rendering his redemption incomplete. This duality is central to Vader's legacy, reflecting the enduring struggle to reconcile love and justice, forgiveness and accountability. It is a tension that speaks to the broader human experience, where the possibility of redemption exists but does not erase the consequences of one's actions.